everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of TVG Talk. My name is Paco Trevino, and today I'm joined by Lauro Chapa.
Hey guys.
And today we'll be talking about a very complex topic. We'll be talking about loot boxes, their legality, the new changes in laws across the world that are happening, and we'll give you our opinion on it. So to begin, let's begin with a brief explanation. Loot boxes are this type of microtransaction that has aspects of gambling and of chance in them. What they do is they offer you opportunities of getting stuff that are exclusive or are very difficult to find elsewhere. And what they do is many times they're cosmetics like clothing or avatars or something like that, but other times they could include weapons and advantages in-game, breaking the balance of the game and giving advantages to those that pay. Some examples of popular games that have had loot boxes in the recent past have been Overwatch, Counter-Strike Go, Star Wars Battlefront 2, which then was removed, and other examples. Well, what's happening is that there are supposed regulations by the ESRB and PEGI and other rating media of video games, but they have not used this regulation, arguing that it's not gambling because you can always get something. Now, the thing is, Hawaii, the Washington State, the US Senate, Belgium, and the Netherlands have all been arguing and examining the cases, and at least 2 countries so far have decided that loot boxes should be regulated, being Netherlands, and today or yesterday, depending on when you're hearing this, they have announced that they are regulating it as well, asking of mainstream publishers that they should change their laws, basically. Changing their policies, telling consumers basically, hey, this game has loot boxes that you have to pay for, and you may not get the full experience if you don't use that system. So, Lauro, I'd like to ask you first off, what's your opinion on loot boxes?
Well, my opinion on loot boxes has always been pretty much negative. Like, when there's a chance of making the game pay to win or having an advantage just because you decided to buy some loot boxes as opposed to other players, that's when I'm completely against it. But when it's merely for aesthetic things like, Overwatch does with skins or celebrations, I think, and some messages the characters can say or write or something, I don't see the problem with that. In fact, I see a benefit in that. To me, people that buy these loot boxes are like, I don't know, I don't want to sound mean, but I think it's pretty dumb. And I think these people like kind of fund for me more free content and more content that is substantial instead of just loot boxes. So I always thought that those kind of loot boxes are good for me, that I have never bought a loot box with real money. But yeah, when they're about game changing and content wise, I don't like them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When they break the game, when they basically, like you were saying, make the game a pay to win, that's when I'm really against it, because everyone bought the same game, and when I boot up a game, what I want is to just enjoy it. And when someone gets a higher chance of winning simply because they have paid more, then I'm not enjoying myself. I mean, when someone gets, like, for example, when I play a tactical RPG online, Fire Emblem, let's say that I want to play Fire Emblem Fates online. When someone beats me because their characters are of a higher level, that's usually because they grinded those levels. They worked for it, and all I can do is, hey, I either step up and play as much as they do, or accept the loss. That's the thing. And, that's perfectly fine. But when someone gets better weapons and better characters because they basically used this system, that's when I think that they are not only wrong but they should be prohibited. Now, when it comes to cosmetics, I still disagree on the model. I don't disagree on selling cosmetics, but I do disagree on the model. Because if I want X or Y costume for a character, I should be able to just get it.
Sure.
I mean, I understand that they want to charge more to keep, helping the game, keep funding events and updates, But when you are making me basically have to grind these loot boxes, pretty much pay if I want to quickly get a costume that maybe will be gone on a week, or on 2 weeks, or on a month, whatever. If you're making me also like, oh, I really want this costume for this character that I use, but if I don't pay up, maybe I'll never get it, Instead, just, hey, you know what? This costume is available for $1, $2. You want it, there it is. You don't want it, you don't get it. If the loot box, I guess that if the loot box was exclusively there when you want to get it for free, I understand it. But if you're gonna pay, just buy the costume. You know, don't make me still go into this loot box thing. I think that's my opinion. And I mean, I've seen many games, for example, I don't know if you guys have played Brawlout, but it has what basically are loot boxes. But since they're free, it's fine. It's the way the game is balanced. It would be better if you could just go ahead and buy whatever. But since that's the way it's made and it's free, go nuts. It's probably a bad business, or a bad game design, but go nuts. So yeah, that's my stance on loot boxes and whether should they or not exist. I do think that they could exist, but not on a place where you're paying. For example, I think that a game that has made a very good use or a very good model of microtransactions is Street Fighter. I mean, we've talked about this a handful of times, right?
Yeah.
Where they make the model be, you buy the game and everything is available for free, but you have to play. You have to get credits. If you don't want to play and get credits to buy those things, you can just pay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's stuff that you can't get for free.
Yeah.
But, there's never a gamble. Basically, that's what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I guess that's like the opening aspect. Like our opinion on loot boxes, we've made our opinions clear, I guess. You are against the game, the ones that break the game, and I'm against basically paying for loot boxes.
Right.
Which, I want to make perfectly clear for people out there listening. We're not against people that have different opinions.
Right.
Because I can totally see where you're coming from, where loot boxes are fun to get, and they appeal to that sense of, like, that energy or that high of, oh, what am I gonna get next? I see it. I'm just saying that it's a little predatory from the publishers. That's what I'm saying, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the loot boxes themselves. I guess that we should go now for the laws. Belgium has been the latest in regulating loot boxes. Now, the details of what constitutes a loot box are very interesting, and they've also made some points of what they think is wrong with them from a marketing standpoint. For example, they were a bit on a shame on you stance with, for example, they criticized that they used celebrities and public figures to promote the loot boxes, like, and you can get this pack with 1,000 crystals or 1,000 of this, or
Yeah.
I think that they cited, or I'm sorry, they didn't cite this, but they did mention, for example, in other cases, the John Boyega ads that they used for Star Wars Battlefront 2, where they were like, and if you pre-order right now, you get this and that, you know, like that's the one that came to mind immediately.
Yeah.
When they said that. And yeah, they were a bit on a shame on you aspect, you know. They did say a few things that were interesting to me. To open, they apparently gave them a few weeks, 2 weeks in fact, to basically tell them, hey, you have this window of time to regulate yourself without us stepping in. From what I could gather, they didn't even answer. They didn't answer we won't, they didn't say anything, but they didn't change anything. So what Belgium has basically done now is apparently they're gonna fine Blizzard, EA, and Valve for the games Overwatch, FIFA, and Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
And the reason is that they are using this game of chance mechanic, I believe that's what they called it. And what they're doing is, if you can pay for something that you don't know what you're gonna get, then that's wrong, you know. And so, from where I could gather, they didn't force them out of the games. Apparently, what they're doing is, hey, we want you to understand that that's a feature in your game that has to be on the PEGI, on the ESRBs, you know, of the world, and pretty much warn customers, because a big issue that they said that was happening is many miners are being, you know, drawn into this system, and they don't really have a concept of the value of money, because, you know, they live off their parents and they are very young and have never been, you know, really on the finances of their homes or whatever.
Right.
And so they're very fragile. They're very easy to convince, you know, to pay up. And so yeah, they were talking also about the way that in the menus of the game, it's really easy to just, you know, like very quickly just pay up, you know, and you get it and you use it immediately. And so you know, your account could really grow immensely. And so many people have argued that many of these games are technically for adults. Let me tell you that in America that's not true. The ESRB, you know, the two examples that are the highest rating or the oldest rating are Overwatch and Counter-Strike. They're both for mature. The thing is, they are 17 plus. There's a whole year there, a whole age, where you're a minor and you are exposed to this. Let's leave aside for a moment FIFA, which is, I think it's E for everyone, which is even worse. So let's like think about those examples for a moment, because in Europe the PEGI system does mark those games as 18 plus, but in the United States it's 17 plus, so there's a whole year there. Now they have argued that also that you don't have to pay to use the loot boxes. You can just grind them out, or you can just not use the loot boxes at all. Many have argued or counter-argued that you don't have to go into a casino, you know. So I don't know. I do think it's important to regulate them. Now I don't know if they should ban them, because it's difficult to ban or to argue to ban a business model. But I do think that it should be regulated. What do you think about all these countries and states evaluating and effectively, you know, regulating loot boxes?
Right. Well, first off, I would like to say that even though I really dislike loot boxes and, you know, microtransactions and whatnot, I still don't consider loot boxes quite the same as just regular gambling, because you still get something. And I know you can get repeated things, but you can sell them for in-game currencies or whatnot. The thing is, I don't see the difference between getting a loot box and getting another kind of microtransaction that is not gambling. So, I think kids shouldn't be anywhere near, shouldn't have the capacity to buy anything under video games, and I think that's on their parents. So the thing is that, to me, the regulation should just be in that you should always get something for that loot box, even if it's a small thing. I mean, I still won't buy any loot boxes either way, but yeah, I think that. Now, the other thing is, right now we're only seeing Belgium and the Netherlands, right? And there's another case in Hawaii, but that is kind of different. I fear that companies will just say, well, loot boxes are really, they give us a lot of profit. So let's just take our games out of Belgium and Holland. I mean, Netherlands. I think it's the same thing. Let's just take the games out of there. I mean, the video game markets there are minimal compared to America and Asia. So maybe they'll think that, loot boxes still without their games on those countries will profit them more than taking away loot boxes altogether. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you that could be a side effect of this. However, since Washington State and Hawaii are also investigating this, I do think that there might be some sanctions. I mean, video games have been under a lot of fire recently with the gun control debate and everything, which we won't get into any of that right now. But the point is, video games are under a lot of very controversial topics. So the government will maybe see an opportunity to regulate them somehow and jump on it. Like you should be regulated,
Sure. I think the difference is that Europe is not the United States, and the government, I know the government in Europe is still like not perfect, right? But the government in the United States is like much more corruptible, and being that the video game industry is now bigger than the movie industry, I think that, I mean, if they really wanted to do something like evil, like something underwater, I think they could do it.
It's possible, but I don't know how easy it would be because, say what you will about the productions of films, but when it comes to the actual product, the films are very regulated.
Sure.
Very, very regulated when it comes to the end user. So I don't see it being like corrupted on that side, because I do think that there might be. Because I do think that there might be, like you're saying, problems of questionable ethics. That can happen anywhere.
Right.
But I don't see it happening on this stance because it's making a lot of noise, and it's been making a lot of noise for over half a year at this point.
Right, but let's compare it to what some people are comparing it, that is, casinos and real gambling. There's a lot of shady things that casinos do all over the United States, and they're a pretty big industry in the United States.
Correct, but also children can't go to a casino. They can't gamble.
Right.
And and people that go there, they know they're going into a casino. Maybe you are buying the latest FIFA and you don't know that you are gonna get loot boxes. Basically a model where you can get something that you just don't want. Let's leave aside for a moment that you do get stuff. Maybe you get stuff that you didn't want. I mean,
right.
So I do see what you mean there, and that's what I'm saying, that maybe the conversation isn't should loot boxes exist. Perhaps they can, right? But they should be regulated. Because all of these things are regulated. All of these things that we're comparing them to are regulated to some capacity. loot boxes are not regulated to any
Sure.
capacity. A
Sure.
kid, a child could just take their parents' credit card and max it out in a few hours with Overwatch.
But a kid could also do the same thing in what's this game called? Fortnite, and Fortnite has no loot boxes. They could do the same thing for League of Legends. And League of Legends now has loot boxes. Well, they could do it before when it didn't have loot boxes.
Correct. But for example, when things like that happen, many times, for example, I think that they get maxed out and things like that, and like they get blocked. But I've seen cases where children have done this, and the thing is, they didn't even get what they wanted, so that's why they are incentivized to spend further, I guess.
Sure, but I've seen like people say like, "Oh, my kids spend $300 on Candy Crush Lives," and that's a type of microtransaction, and you know what you're getting, and it's not a loot box.
That's correct. That's right. I mean, in general, perhaps microtransactions should get regulated, not only loot boxes. I mean, because anything that's consumable and that you can repeatedly buy, it's a very difficult thing to control for a child. Right. Because I was more so thinking like, let's say that you want a skin for a character. Perhaps you used it once and it's harder for the kid to really do that much damage. I mean, it's really difficult to regulate the children themselves. Like you were saying earlier, that's on the parents. But also, for example, it's on the parents when a kid like gets one of the dad's cigarettes or gets a beer from the house, right? It's on the parents. But right. Kids can't go to the store and buy cigarettes or buy a beer. At least not in the United States and in Mexico or America in general. But
right, but in theory, kids could not go in with their parents' credit card and buy something from the, buy a loot box or whatever, because they don't have the permission.
Well,
because they're not the owners.
Well, they could also buy how do you say a prepay card, like for the PSN or whatever, or Steam.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's many ways
that is true.
that this could happen, and the problem is that also it's difficult. Like the main issue is that children many times don't have the perception of cost and the perception of value, and they can just, oh, I didn't get it, let's continue until we get it, and they could never get it. And actually, another thing, now that I'm remembering, another thing that that Belgium said that it was a shady thing is that you don't know the chances that you have.
That's important.
Even like many predatory, how do you call them, chance games, like for example Fire Emblem Heroes. It's a game that I enjoyed, but the amount of money that you can spend in those things is insane. Now, the game itself is fine. You get a lot of orbs, which is the currency to buy characters, so you're not really that incentivized. But I do see, people like, for example, in the Apple or in the Play Store, I should say, you buy something, it doesn't even ask you to confirm. It has happened to me several times. Like I want to buy an album, or I want to buy a game. For example, when I bought Super Mario Run, like I said, okay, I want to buy, but then I wanted to check what credit card I was going to use. I couldn't check it. It just paid it up.
I think that's on you, because for me, it always asks me, and I think that's
you have an iPhone. Maybe it could be the stores.
Yeah, I got confused. Yeah, I got confused.
So, like I do see how a kid, like, if it happened to me with something that I did want, I do see how maybe you say, oh, maybe I don't want it, and oh, it's already bought. So, yeah, and you don't know the chances. Like I was saying, Fire Emblem Heroes does tell you have a chance, like it has like different editions, so to speak, for those of you that haven't played that game. Like there's the Fire Emblem Awakening, and you can get the Fire Emblem Awakening characters, and there's a Fire Emblem Birthright, and you can get those characters. So
yeah,
it tells you, like, you can press a corner on the screen that I think it has the eye of info, and it basically lays down like each character, the how powerful they are, and the chances that you have of getting it. And I do think that sort of information is very important, because you say, hey, maybe like, oh, I have a 1 in 100 chances. Maybe I will spend those that dollar, or maybe I will spend that $50. So,
I mean, I get it. I mean, yeah, it's very important to know the chances, but that would just make me think like, oh, I'll just buy it 100 times.
No, I mean, I understand that's less appealing, but that's the point. I'm not on the side of publishers. I'm on the side of players. You know.
No, right. I'm just saying that a player could still go crazy with that, like saying like, oh, I only have to buy it 50 more times or whatever.
Okay, for a moment I thought you were being ironic, but now that you mention
no, like literally, like literally.
Yeah, that's right. I do know people that would go crazy for that. In fact, before recording this, I told you guys about this, but I also told another group of friends, and the reaction was very different. Like, they were like, what? And they were, and I actually wanted to hear their opinion, because I'm not on the side of, just shutting off people. I want to hear them out. I want to know where they're coming from. And first off, this guy was telling me that it was fun to play them, because he sees them, like, for him, paying is never an option. That's what he told me. And he said it's really fun to open up loot boxes and know what you get. And I was like, I understand, but paying is an option, and people do pay. And he tells me, well, but people pay when they want to. And I told him, yes, but the option is there. That little rabbit hole of paying $50 or whatever is there. So, we were on this back and forth, and he said, and when we wound up that we were not going to convince the other. But it is interesting to me, because I thought that this was a very close case of publishers versus players, and many times publishers versus developers as well. I have heard developers that were against some business practices by their developers. There's
the Battlefront 2 guys and the Metal Gear Survive guys.
There's been exactly, the Metal Gear Survive guys have been the most vocal ones, in a very beautiful, hidden way. So, there's a lot of this discussion that I thought was very exclusively, black and white, but apparently there's people that do think it's fine. Now,
I mean, if it was black and white, the companies wouldn't be doing it. I mean, there's a lot of people who spend lots of money on this and have no problem with it.
Yeah, like there's definitely a lot of people that are okay with paying up to. I mean, I heard, for example, there's a friend that spent a lot of money on Fire Emblem Heroes, and he almost felt like, I mean, because the game has been out for what, like a year and a half. He was like, I play that game every day, and the developers have not seen a cent from that. Like, if I hadn't paid anything, they would have not seen a cent, and they do balance the game and add more things, and he's like, well, it's my way of paying up for this game. And he said,
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. And I actually, and that did open a little bit my eyes, like, you know what, that's right. I mean, it's kind of silly, but at the same time, you have to sit down and remember there's people doing this. And you know, I've never paid Fire Emblem Heroes currency, the crystals or the orbs or whatever. But I do play a lot of Fire Emblem games. I mean, I have a lot of them, and I play those because that's more my style. But, you know, maybe if I did play more Fire Emblem Heroes, I would be like, hey, maybe I should buy, I don't know, $10 worth of orbs or whatever. And yeah, that's interesting. There's many angles to this. And, you know, there was also the argument of, you know, Overwatch uses those loot boxes to fund their updates and to fund, you know, the animated shorts that they do and fund all these things.
Yeah.
And they give a lot of those things for free. So there is an argument there. But, like I said at the beginning, I don't know if they should go with loot boxes. I think DLC is a more appropriate route, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was my main argument. If other people are funding the updates and whatnot, I mean, it's fine by me. I'm not gonna spend anything on loot boxes I've never had, or microtransactions. I think as a whole, I think I've never spent. But yeah, I mean, if people want to spend, and they do, well, then go ahead. I really have no problem in that. Like, people wanting to spend, as long as it's, you know, not a pay-to-win system, go crazy at it. I mean, you play the game as you want to, and sometimes it's also really satisfying, like, beating someone who I know has spent a lot of money in the game and I have spent none. It's also somehow satisfying to beat a player like that when, like, I don't know, when you kill someone in Fortnite who has the skin that you got to pay for. I'm always like, yeah, I mean, this dude spends a lot of money in the game and I spent none and I beat him still. And what your friend said about them funding the mobile game, I mean, sure, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think Fire Emblem has no ads, so the only revenue they get is probably, you know, the ads on the download page in the App Store, and that's it. So, you know, I think that's a good thing. But I doubt your friend only spent like $10 or $20. I mean, I don't know how much he did, but I think if I spend something like that, I wouldn't hesitate to spend even more and more.
Yeah, that's a big issue. You know, once you start paying for those things, like you really get into it, and you know, continue until the end of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with this guy about that, like, I don't know, 3 months ago. I mean, the game has been out for so long, and I mean, I should clarify, he didn't buy it in dollars. He spent it in pesos. As some of you know, we are Mexican. And
Mexican pesos,
spent,
yeah.
I think he spent 300 pesos, which would translate to about $15. But you know, that was a while ago. Maybe that number has grown. I don't know. I should probably ask him. But yeah, I mean, the argument with mobile games, I guess it's stronger because they're free. With a game like Overwatch, you already spent potentially $60 if you didn't buy it on a sale or anything. So, and many times we're talking about years-old games. For example, one of them is Counter-Strike Go. That game has been out for more than a decade by this point. Or
Counter-Strike Go? No, I don't think so.
Well, it's been out for a very long time.
Well, it's 2012. 6 years?
6 years. Okay, maybe I exaggerated. But 6 years, it's a long time. Like, that game has already made its money back, you know, and tenfold.
Oh, definitely has.
Well, I mean, I of course I'm underselling it. It's an esport. It's way beyond that at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's that difference, and I also think that not all loot boxes should be treated equal, like you said at the beginning, with the ones that are cosmetic versus the ones that basically break the game. Overwatch is a mostly cosmetic one, and that should be acknowledged. That it's not like when they make you pay to get other characters or pay to get powers or weapons or something like that. It should be, divided.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like always, guys, we are only, starting a conversation here. We always want to hear your opinion because this is a very important topic. Whether you are for or against loot boxes and for or against microtransactions, and we definitely want to hear your opinion, so please let us know your opinion in the comments below or somewhere on our social media. We will be surely answering and, just having a healthy conversation, hopefully. And so, Lauro, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think that this conversation could go for hours and hours, even though we already took a lot of time. But
Right.
yeah, I would love to hear what people have to say about this, and also to continue with the story, seeing what happens on Belgium and Holland, Hawaii, and other parts of the world.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how publishers take this, because they could repeal, they could pay up, they could, deal something else. So, and I do think that it will make a precedent. Whatever happens in Netherlands and Belgium will happen in the rest of Europe, and that will happen in, in America, in Asia, etc. Like, this is like the spark, I feel like, and it will reflect across the world. Anyways, that's it for this particular discussion, guys. We hope that you have enjoyed it, and we hope that it has made you think about, all angles. And let's keep it clean, in the comments below. This has been Paco Treviño, and today I was joined by Lauro Chapa.
Thanks for listening, guys.
If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, bye bye, guys.